For Jerusalem's sake, I will not remain quiet till her vindication shines out like the dawn, her salvation like a blazing torch. No longer will they call you deserted or name your land desolate, for the Lord will take delight in you. Say to Zion, see, your Messiah comes.
Welcome to They Thought for Themselves. I'm your host, Bob Duvall. One of the signs of the soon return of Jesus is Jewish people coming to believe in Jesus as their Messiah. And my guest today, Rabbi Kirt Schneider, is one of those believers. Now, Rabbi, you have an amazing story of how you came to know Yeshua, and that it includes this supernatural encounter with God, and I want to hear about that. But first, let's go back to when you were a child. Mm-hmm. Both your parents were Jewish. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the neighborhood where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in an eastern suburb of Cleveland called Beechwood, Ohio, that was actually listed as having the second highest concentration of Jews outside of Israel anywhere in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, not that there was as many Jews in Beechwood as New York or Los Angeles, but the proximity of so many Jews living close together. And it was really a great, wonderful experience growing up because the Jewish community is tight. And those were the days. I was born in 1958, so neighborhoods were safe.
Yeah.
And there was no fear, and all my friends at school were like me. I mean, you just share something in common with your own people. So I have great memories growing up in Beechwood. Our public school was actually closed on some of the Jewish holidays because no one would show up. And, I love my culture, I love my people, I love the personality.
Now, part of growing up Jewish for you was going to Hebrew school.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
Well, I guess that was one part of my experience that I found a little dry. I went to a conservative synagogue in Cleveland and went there 3 days a week, plus on Sundays, getting ready for my bar mitzvah. Mm-hmm. And it was just very boring to me. I don't want to be so blunt, but it really was. I mean, they never talked to me about having a relationship with God. There was never any addressing of personal issues. It was just being prepared for my bar mitzvah, learning how to read Hebrew,
right.
Memorizing the prayers, so on and so forth.
Okay, 7th grade. You moved to another neighborhood, a real nice neighborhood, still very, very Jewish. But the school you go to, you have Jewish friends, but you now have this Italian friend who wears this big cross on his neck.
Yeah.
Did he talk to you about Jesus?
No, his name was Tim. I'll leave out his last name. He was Italian. He was the toughest kid in the high school. Oh. And we connected with each other because we both were on the wrestling team. And I used to like to just watch him and walk around with him to see who he's going to beat up. I mean, I'm ashamed to say it now, but as a kid, it was just like, who's he going to beat up today? And I look back and I cringe. But yeah, he was the only non-Jewish friend I had, but he was far from Jesus and never mentioned Jesus to me.
So you had your bar mitzvah. And I guess one benefit of that was you were done with Hebrew school.
Yeah.
So you had time now on your hands, and you got interested in wrestling.
Yes,
right?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
My cousin was a wrestler, and being a short guy like myself, I didn't have any aspirations to play football, and I kind of followed in my cousin's footsteps and every year that went by, Bob, it just became more and more important to me until really by the time I hit 11th grade, between the summer of 10th grade and the time I began 11th grade, something just happened to me. I don't know what happened, but I became like singularly focused. Obsessed with wrestling, and had a specific goal of being an Ohio State champion.
Okay, you did really well. You didn't become state champion, but you got to the point where you finished that last match of high school. What did you feel like? You were done.
Yeah. Well, it was traumatic, to say the least. I mean, it was a total change in my reality, because the longer I continued wrestling, the better I got. I came to a place where I felt there was nobody I couldn't beat, and my only world was people that wrestled my weight class. So I felt in control, and I had peace in that. But then when I walked off the wrestling mat after wrestling that last match in high school, I realized that wrestling didn't mean a hill of beans anymore, that the world I was about to step into as an adult had nothing to do with 119-pounders. So it was like the world was pulled out, Bob, from underneath my feet. Now I'm in a big world. There's realities out there that scared me: death, cancer, car wrecks, all kinds of stuff. And I went from feeling like I was on top of the world and in control of life to suddenly feeling like the world was much bigger than me. And that really was a terrifying state. Plus, I lost my identity, because wrestling, like I said, it didn't mean anything anymore.
Well, now you go to college, get a little ways in, but you want to be financially successful. So you drop out, and this is back in the disco days. You want to start a discotheque.
Yes, that's
How did that work out?
Well, it didn't work out as great, but God's got a plan for everything. The reason I dropped out of school to open up the discotheque is because I felt like maybe if I made a lot of money, I'd feel better. It would help me to recuperate some of what I lost when wrestling ended. I didn't really think it was the answer, but I didn't know of any better answer. So I dropped out to open up the discotheque, and my idea was to get investors, friends of the family. I would run it, own a piece of the business for putting it together and running it. And I knew the first important piece of that puzzle was finding the right location. So to make a long story short, I decided to raise money by selling encyclopedias door to door, simply to travel the country to find the right location for the discotheque.
Wow. Now, when you did that, you became a sales manager. You were successful. You went to a meeting of sales managers, and you bumped into another manager who had a book about a yogi.
Yes.
Why did you get interested in that?
Well, I always had was a dreamer. I even believed in the mystical. So when this sales manager started telling me about this book he was reading, Autobiography of a Yogi, he told me this guy could do supernatural things like levitate off the ground. So this is in the 70s, and yoga was big and the New Age was big. And so I'd seen pictures of people levitating off the ground before. Whether it was true or not, I didn't know. But I went out and bought the book, saw the pictures, was like, this is like captivating. Like, if this is really true, I thought, God, if this is true, I found my new wrestling. So I started really pursuing that which I thought I had to do to come to a place of enlightenment, focusing on what the book talked about as being my third eye, setting up a little New Age temple in my bedroom, and the goal was to be able to levitate off the ground.
Wow. Rabbi, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear about Rabbi's supernatural God encounter that led him to Jesus. Come back in just a moment.
In 70 AD, the Jewish temple was destroyed. We lost our country and became wandering Jews. Even our faith was reinvented. Judaism became rabbinic Judaism, and the rabbis became our mediators to access God. This man-made religious Judaism continued all the way to my generation. But at 30, I thought for myself. I was shocked when I read the Jewish scriptures, not through the lens of the rabbis. The scriptures taught me how to live in supernatural peace, no matter what. They also answered every question I had. I even learned what happens after you die. It's time for you to think for yourself. Download my free ebook detailing my supernatural experience with Jesus and irrefutable proof that Jesus is the Messiah of the whole world. Better yet, why we need a Messiah. Go to sidroth.org/think.
Welcome back to They Thought for Themselves. I'm Bob Duvall here with Rabbi Schneider. Now tell me, summer of 1978, what happened?
What happened is I'm in the middle of reading this book, Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm having like a spiritual awakening, like I'm going to maybe be able to levitate off the ground. And in the middle of reading the book, I go to sleep one night. I'm still living with my parents in Pepper Pike, Ohio on Bremerton Road. Now, keep in mind, Bob, no one had ever talked to me about Jesus. Jesus was as far away to me as the man on the moon. I mean, I never considered Jesus for a second.
Had you even maybe read a little bit of the New Testament? Or?
Nothing at all.
Okay.
So totally just foreign to me. I go to sleep this hot August night, and all of a sudden, I'm awoken from my sleep into what I would call a supernatural state of awareness. Suddenly, I realize I'm not sleeping. I'm aware. My eyes are still closed. Then in color, Jesus appears to me in a vision. I can see the ground that the cross is staked in. There's some people in the distance looking at him as he's on the cross. And as an American, I knew enough to know the person on the cross was Jesus. That's about it.
Right.
Then a ray of red light from straight through the sky, from through the blue sky, came down on Jesus' head. And when I saw that ray of red light, Bob, come down on his head, I knew the light was coming from God because I understood the symbolism, and I knew that God was revealing himself to me, showing me that Jesus was the way to him.
Well, now, okay, how did you respond to this? Did you just kind of keep it to yourself and meditate on it for a few months, or how did you respond?
I was very excited because, remember, I was really lost. I was looking for purpose. I was trying to find meaning again after wrestling ended. And so when that vision occurred, and it was only a couple seconds that it happened, immediately hope came into my heart. I looked at my clock radio. It was 3:30 in the morning. I went to the restroom, went back to bed, got up the next morning, told my whole family about it.
Well, okay, your parents, Jewish?
Yes.
How did they respond?
Well, they didn't respond much at all at first because they probably thought it was a dream and it'd be over in a couple days. But I kept on talking about it. I mean, I had a life, I had an encounter that marked me. And I started telling everybody about it. And I was a pretty popular kid, so even though my close friends were Jewish, I knew lots of people. And I'm telling everybody about this experience. And eventually somebody says to me, you need to go get a New Testament. So I went out and bought a New Testament, started devouring it. Then I would go to my dad and say, Dad, look at this verse, that God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself. I thought it was the coolest thing since sliced bread. That's when my parents started getting concerned.
Okay, well, so they're actually getting panicked.
Yes.
Because it's kind of a shameful thing. I mean, their son's out there talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
So they take a desperate measure. They hire the top cult deprogrammer in the country.
Yes.
to work on you. Tell me what happened.
Well, basically, I was in a sense abducted. I mean, my dad told me not to make plans on Sunday, that we were going to go talk to somebody about buying a restaurant and that he and I would be in business together. So that Sunday comes, we get in the car, we drive to this hotel in Beechwood, Ohio. We go to the second floor, going into a regular hotel room, which looking back on it, I guess I was a little naive, but we went into a regular hotel room. There's three guys in the hotel room. The main deprogrammer, Ted Patrick, and two of his bodyguards and enforcers, probably in their mid-20s, both about probably 6'2", 200 pounds or so. So my mom, dad, and I walk in the room, the door closes behind me, then Ted Patrick looks at me and says, Kirt, we're going to talk about cults. They had a projector set up in the room. They flipped the projector on. They started showing a film of some Hare Krishnas, and there was people dancing. The Hare Krishnas were dancing, and Ted pointed at one of the little kids, about 7 years old or so, however, just a young kid. You see that kid, he said to me? There's nothing we can do for that kid. All he's ever known his whole life is Hare Krishna. But you've been living for 20 years like a normal person, and I'm going to consider it a personal challenge to snap you out of this.
Now, you were basically abducted. They took you to California, where you got to hang out at the beach during the day and in a bar at night, and I guess they thought getting you out of your environment would snap you out of it. And after a couple weeks, you were allowed to come back home.
Yeah. I think they realized early on that I wasn't the typical type of person that they were hired to deprogram. I think they could see that I wasn't programmed. I said, I'm not programmed. I just believe Jesus is the Messiah. And I think they kind of recognized that. And so after 2 weeks of taking me to the beach in the day and the bars at night, they took me over to Ted Patrick's home for dinner. And I said, can I leave? He said, yeah.
Wow.
The next day they gave me my keys and I drove back to Cleveland.
Okay, so you get back there, you're maybe a little less vocal, but your parents, they haven't given up. they hire a psychiatrist
Yes.
to talk to you. What happened?
Well, they invited a Jewish psychiatrist over my home, and he was very unintimidating. He came over, and we sat down at the kitchen table, and he basically just asked me a couple questions, and I went on, and he didn't stop me, and I was just giving my testimony about Jesus. And that was the end of it. It seemed very peaceful. There was no challenge going on, no confrontation. The hour or so was up that I spoke with the psychiatrist. I got in my vehicle afterwards, and by this time I did have some Christian friends. I went over to one of my Christian friends' house. I said, man, I just made mincemeat out of that psychiatrist.
And is that what happened?
That's not what happened. He was baiting me so that he could hear me say that I had a vision of Jesus, because he was specifically being hired, I believe, to get me probated to the psychiatric ward of Mount Sinai Hospital. So my parents said if they could get me isolated for 2 months under psychiatric care, that I come to my senses and get rid of this delusion about Jesus.
So after they had you committed, but after a couple months, you were able to get back out again. And at this point, you're realizing that you've lost your friends, your family is not that close anymore. So you actually get out of town. And I think it's an amazing story. You start by flipping a coin, see where it lands on the map. It's somewhere in Minnesota. You actually go there. You drive into your little Kremlin.
Yep.
You go there. You realize there's no work there.
Yeah.
Then you head to Corpus Christi, Texas. Why in the world did you drive there?
Well, I was figuring out I was going to run out of money soon. So I asked myself, well, where's the best place to run out of money? So I figured the farthest place I could get from Park Rapids, Minnesota, which I went to because the coin landed on the Mac on Park Rapids, and I said, this isn't going to work. There's no jobs here. So I said, well, I'm going to run out of money. I got to get someplace warm. So I figured the warmest place I could get to was Corpus Christi. In my naive thinking, I thought that'd be the warmest place because it was close to the ocean. And growing up, we always went to Miami Beach. It was on the ocean, so I figured it'd be warm in Corpus Christi.
Well, Rabbi, we have to take one more quick break. And when we come back, he doesn't, he actually ends up in California, and he hits a very low point. And we'll talk about that in just a moment.
Do you ever feel unloved, like you wish you hadn't been born? Like the world would just be better off if you weren't in it? This is the truth. There is someone who loves you deeply. Before the creation of time, he knew everything about you and stored up abundant blessings for you. Every tear you have shed, he has counted. Every moment of happiness, he has rejoiced at. He watches over you from morning till night. He is your biggest fan. He formed you in your mother's womb. He adopted you into his family before creation. He has cared for you from the moment you were born. He declares that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. His thoughts toward you outnumber the sand on the seashore. He says that if your parents reject you, he will take you in. Even if your mother forgets you, he will never forget you. He will be a real father to you. He says that he has chosen you to be like his son so that you could be part of his family. He promises that you can know and depend on the love he has for you. His love is perfect. He will never abandon you. And he promises that if you draw close to him, he will draw close to you. We would love to tell you more about him. Get a free online download of the book, They Thought for Themselves, by logging onto the website, theythoughtforthemselves.com.
Welcome back to They Thought for Themselves. Now, Kirt, we had you on your way to Corpus Christi, Texas, getting away. Your car breaks down. Long story short, you end up in California living with your aunt. You get a job, graveyard shift, dishwasher. You get to your job by riding your little cousin's bicycle. you're hitting the lowest point. What's going through your head?
Yeah,
at this
that was a
point?
low point because I was so excited and still am obviously excited about Jesus, Yeshua, but I didn't expect that I'd find myself riding my little cousins to work, bicycle to work as a 20-something-year-old as a graveyard dishwasher. And I said, Lord, where's my life going? I mean, it doesn't seem like I've got any path forward here, any goal. And I said, Lord, and I wasn't interested in making money, but I just was interested in feeling good about myself. I said, Lord, if I ever make $100,000 a year, so this is going back, what now, almost 40 years ago, I said, that'll be a miracle. And sure enough, it wasn't too long after that when I went into business that I was making over $100,000 a year before ministry.
Wow. Okay. But from California, your dad actually reached out to you and said,
Yeah.
you need to come home.
Yeah, he did. I was in California, lived with my aunt. Dad said, come home, you belong home. I go back home. As soon as I got back home, Bob, I felt the hostility again.
Okay. But things began to kind of turn for you a little bit. You met
Yes.
your wife.
I met my bride, Cynthia Marjorie, and such a impartation of the Lord's peace and love in my life. So we got married in 6 months from meeting each other, and the night after our honeymoon, we headed off to Toccoa Falls Bible School.
Wow. Okay. You go through Bible school. Of course, you're not your average college student.
Right.
And you get like the best preacher award at college there?
Yeah, when I graduated.
Yeah. And then you jump, you actually go to grad school for a little bit, but then you get into ministry. You pastor. But you don't stay in that. What happened?
Well, what happened was, number one, I don't feel my primary gifting is as a pastor. I feel like it's as an evangelist, a preacher. You know, in Hebrew we call it a shaliach. A shaliach, a messenger, a sent one. So that's what I am. I'm a messenger, a sent one. So I pastored for a number of years and grew a lot from that and gained a lot from that. But a couple things happened. There was a couple different phases. One was that the Lord was moving me into a more supernatural experience as a pastor, and the church that I was pastoring was kind of anti-supernatural. So that led to the break in that connection there. And I also felt there were some just personal things in my own life that I wanted to work on. So that's when I got into business for a number of years. And then the Lord called me back. He said, your message, because I was working as a motivational speaker. And as I was working as a motivational speaker, the Lord spoke to me, said, the message that I've given you is not to speak to business people, it's to preach Jesus all over the world.
All right. Now, you eventually took over as the rabbi of a Messianic congregation. Then in 2002, you started this television program that you still host today called Discovering the Jewish Jesus. So tell me, what kind of reach does that program have today?
I mean, it really is amazing. I don't really fully even comprehend all the people that the Lord, I believe, is reaching through the ministry, but we broadcast all over the world. We're on most major religious networks. I travel all over the world and hold outreaches on the ground. We get testimonies by the thousands and thousands of people discovering God, finding God, Jewish and Gentile testimonies from every culture, every age group. So basically, I'm just proclaiming the good news of the kingdom of heaven.
Now, there are many who would say, especially in the Jewish community, that if you accept Jesus, you're no longer Jewish.
Yeah.
So, but why do you say that knowing Jesus, Yeshua, you feel your Jewish identity more than you ever have? Why do you say
Absolutely.
that?
Well, first I would say the comment that if you believe in Jesus or Yeshua, you're no longer Jewish makes no logical sense, because being Jewish is part of being a physical descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and nothing can change that. If I was a Jew that was an atheist, no one would say I'm not Jewish. If I was a Jew practicing Buddhism, no one would say I'm not Jewish. It's only towards Jesus that there's this mindset. But the reality is, Bob, when I received Yeshua, who died on the cross with a sign over his head that said, Yeshua of Nazareth, King of the Jews, I became more Jewish than ever. I understood the Torah better than ever. I discovered the prophets more than ever. So I truly, in my DNA, I have more of a Jewish identity than I've ever had in my life from knowing the King of the Jews.
Now, what would you say to the Jewish person who's watching right now, who doesn't know Jesus? What would you tell them?
I would say that Jesus is alive. We call him Yeshua in Hebrew. And all you have to do is open your heart sincerely and say, God, if Jesus, if Yeshua is really the Messiah, I'm completely opening myself up to you right now, and I'm asking you to show me. But you have to be willing that when the Lord does show you, that you're willing to believe and take action. But if you'll do that, He wants to reveal Himself to you. You just have to open your heart and be willing to follow the truth wherever that leads.
So, Rabbi, I want you to take a couple minutes right now and pray for that viewer.
Okay. I'm going to pray for you, and I'm going to pray similarly for you as I pray for myself. We all need God because we were created by God, and the only way to find fulfillment and wholeness is to come into alignment with the one that made us. Yeshua said, if you believe in me, rivers of living water will flow from your innermost being. So we're just going to pray together. And if you're my Jewish brother, my Jewish sister, I just ask you just to trust, just have enough security to open your heart to God and say, Father God, say God, Elohim, Adonai, I trust you. And I'm looking for you. And I know as a Jew, I was taught that Jesus wasn't for me. But I'm listening to Rabbi Schneider speak right now, and I can feel by the way that he's talking that he's authentic. So I'm willing, Lord, to follow the truth wherever it leads. And I'm trusting you that if Jesus isn't the Messiah, that you'll protect me. But right now, I want the truth. So Father God, Adonai, I'm asking you right now, if Yeshua is really the Jewish Messiah and the King of Israel, I ask you to show me. I ask you to do something in my life that will mark me, making me know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Yeshua, Jesus, is who He said He is, the Messiah of Israel and the Savior of the world. If you'll pray that prayer or something similar, God's going to show up in your life.
There's nothing more Jewish than to believe in Jesus, the Jewish Messiah. Open your heart to Him today. Ask God to show you who Jesus really is. And join us again next time for They Thought for Themselves.
Life can seem to glide by in a monotonous rhythm of daily activities. You wake, you shower, you dress, you take care of others and make sure they have all they need, you commute to work, you work hard for 8 hours, maybe 9, maybe 10. You commute back home. You cook dinner. You watch some television. You go to bed. It's the same predictable cycle, day after day, month after month, year after year. You wonder, is this all there is to life? The truth is that change is available. There is a greater purpose for your life, something only you can do. There's a plan, a guiding map that has been there since before you were even born. There's a path that was created for you, which you alone can take. Day by day, hour by hour, if you choose to pursue it, your destiny will be revealed. The invitation is there. Will you discover all that life has for you? Do you want to find out what you were truly created for? Do you want more? Are you hungry to discover your purpose? We would love to provide you with a powerful book that will show you the way. Get a free online download of the book, They Thought for Themselves, by logging onto the website, theythoughtforthemselves.com.